Sweet Tea literally had a Cinderella story the last couple years of her life. Follow me here.
Funky Dineva isn't holding anything back this time, especially when it comes to Dr. G and Sweet Tea getting the boot from Married to Medicine. As you are all aware, it wouldn't be a true internet day if he didn't deliver the tea hot and straight to the point. This was personal, in his opinion, and had nothing to do with low ratings or a lack of drama. Furthermore, Sweet Tea was a pawn in a larger scheme of things rather than merely a cast member. As you can see, Dineva feels that Sweet Tea was taken advantage of. Her relationship with Dr. G was brought on the show with the sole intention of competing against Quad, to stir things up and divert attention from someone else, not to develop her own narrative or allow the audience to get to know her. The absurd thing is that she didn't even request it. In one moment, she's going about her everyday life, sending Dr. G direct messages, getting married, and believing she's entering her happily ever after. The next thing you know, she's on national television, caught up in a controversy she didn't cause. Dineva claimed that she was collateral damage and that the producers had no use for her after that plot didn't blow up the way they had anticipated. What then transpired behind the scenes to cause this abrupt departure? It's messier than you anticipated. Sweet Tea's Mother's Day launch was the first concrete indication that she was mentally leaving Married to Medicine, and it wasn't just a gesture of love for the mothers. She talked about how she needed to feel good about moving forward and that things had to make sense to her. For her, it was about authenticity and serenity rather than fame, platform, or pursuing more camera time. She said she shared her story in the hopes of inspiring others, but that show wasn't providing any of that. She acknowledged the worth of her journey, but she also made it plain that she wouldn't sacrifice herself to continue appearing on a reality show. To be honest, that was already a gentle farewell. She then put the final nail in the coffin in another clip from her live stream. She was done with Married to Medicine after just 2 seasons.
She gets thrown on a TV show. Like, that is a lot for any regular person living a regular old life, and overnight they get married and get put on a TV show. Like, most people would dream to have a situation like that. And I know that that girl, her family was excited.
The drama wasn't worth it, she even stated plainly. Now, Funky Dineva was already on his live stream informing you of the time. While Sweet Tea was out here keeping it classy, Funky informed his audience that Sweet Tea and Dr. G would not be returning before any formal announcement was made. He stated bluntly that they were not involved in the upcoming filming. And people pay attention to Funky when he talks in these reality circles. He has insider connections, so he's not just making this stuff up. He has spent enough time with these networks and the cast members to be aware of when something is going on. He even made a joke about getting into it by snatching off his tiny toupee. Don't be misled though, the man presented facts in his delivery, gave the impression that they were widely known before the network even made them public. He explained why they were gone rather than merely stating that they were gone, and it had nothing to do with uninteresting plots or viewers. However, this is where things become messy. Funky poured the entire kettle, not just the tea. Funky claims that this entire situation wasn't purely coincidental. Sweet Tea wasn't drawn into reality TV, rather she was drawn into it. Funky broke it all down to participate in someone else's feud. To get under Quad's skin, Sweet Tea and Dr. G were brought back to Married to Medicine not to flaunt their new marriage or introduce themselves to the fans, but rather to use their relationship as a leverage. Consider this, Quad's exes, G, the producers, were aware of the past. They were aware that making his new wife the center of attention would lead to conflict. They believed that Sweet Tea would make for great television, come in bold and swinging, and bring that smoking gun energy.
I know she started building sandcastles in the sky of like all the things she wanted to do with her life and do with the money, and then bam, this happens.
Here's the twist though. Sweet Tea believed she was coming in as herself, not some hired villain, and was unaware that was the plan. They were no longer in need of her after she failed to provide the drama they had hoped for. In plain terms, Funky stated that she was collateral damage. She was thrust into the limelight under pressure to perform and then dismissed when the story didn't go as planned. From her daily life to the spotlight on TV, she was living her own Cinderella tale, from DMs to diamonds. It suddenly collapsed because she didn't perform the part for which she was cast. Whether you love him, hate him, or simply never felt like you understood him, Sweet Tea wasn't navigating all of this chaos alone. So let's talk about Dr. G for a moment. There is no doubt that he had some influence on how everything turned out. How much did he know is the question. Funky Dineva claims that Dr. G was well aware of the implications of his return to Married to Medicine. He wasn't just reappearing for no apparent reason. This was about relevance, not about showing people his new life or sharing his progress. Returning to the screen with a new wife, no less, was the ideal way to regain some attention after years away from the show. Why would he return to the same platform that exposed all of the chaos with Quad, you ask? Even though he didn't come up with the plan, he didn't stop it either. He allowed Sweet Tea to enter a situation where she was obviously being used. He had to understand that the producers weren't bringing him back out of kindness. Rather, they were doing so to stir things up. Furthermore, he played along and showed up for the filming, giving the impression that he never intervened to defend her. Sat through those reunion tapes as if nothing had changed, while Sweet Tea gradually came to terms with the fact that she was a pawn in someone else's scheme. Not to mention when things began to change, when the vibe became strange, and when people began to turn against her. She wasn't exactly being defended by Dr. G. We must now discuss Dr. G because in most cases, a man wearing a bow tie is evading responsibility wherever there is smoke. This is the harsh reality. It all came down to performance, according to Funky Dineva. Furthermore, we are discussing TV value, not marriages or medical prowess. To provide the kind of high-stakes, high-volume drama that keeps viewers riveted, producers brought back Sweet Tea and Dr. G. However, they experienced awkward silence and passive tension in place of explosions. They didn't bring enough heat, according to Funky. It was intended for Sweet Tea to be this fiery character who could oppose Quad and provide viewers with a new antagonist or fan favorite to support. Instead of playing into the setups, however, they got someone who was attempting to survive them. She didn't take the bait, she didn't pop off, and she didn't provide the network with the viral moments they were hoping for during the reunion. Dr. G, meanwhile, was playing in the background as if he was content to simply be there without any tension or significant influence. If you don't deliver in the reality TV industry, you're either causing chaos or assisting someone else in doing so. Sweet Tea, on the other hand, didn't play that game because she didn't want to, which made her expendable not because she couldn't. However, this is where things start to change, and for the better, to be honest. Sweet Tea didn't simply stop talking after leaving Bravo. Instead, she turned her experience, story, and all the lessons she had learned into something new. She no longer plays a character or tries to survive scenes. Instead, she is just being herself on YouTube, creating content on her own terms. Her videos are also not just solo. She is now a member of an entirely new crew. Women like her can shine on the Dr. Wives of Atlanta without being set up for conflict because it's a more encouraging environment. Viewers can sense that she feels more secure and in control there as well. She is telling her story in her own way, laughing more, looking good, and at last being able to breathe instead of squabbling for screen time or clapping back in every scene. Only content that represents her actual life is being produced. No producers are attempting to confine her or have any secret agendas. And what do you know? Given that she appears content, unconcerned, and camera ready, perhaps getting fired was the best thing that could have happened to her. In the end, the entire situation feels more like a setup than a natural fallout when we go back to everything Funky Dineva outlined. It appeared as though Sweet Tea's part had been written from the minute she took the stage, not for her own success, but for someone else's plot. She was brought in as a trigger, a tool to shake the table, primarily around Quad, rather than as a new lead. However, Sweet Tea went from being a key component of the show to being entirely disposable when that plan failed. Funky explained that she was never intended to last, rather her purpose was to spark a reaction. When that reaction failed to generate enough attention or ratings, they let her go as if she had never been important. It was all about the show. She wasn't protected, she wasn't led, and it doesn't appear that anyone, not Dr. G or production, stepped in to make sure she survived this. Additionally, the support stopped rolling when the camera did. Sweet Tea deserves better. Reality TV chewed her up and spat her out, but she's glowing now, someone wrote on Twitter. Another was added, Funky Dineva is telling no lies as usual. Bravo didn't want real, they wanted chaos. Now that the truth is out, do you all believe that Sweet Tea was a victim of Bravo's chess match with a plot, or was it just bad television? Drama is far from over, so please share your thoughts in the comment section and remember to like, subscribe, and share.